and how much you're paying the employee. We've talked a little bit about the PR supporting the applications of LMIA applications supporting PR, global talent stream, but we're going to actually get into details about those now. I want to cover main considerations about different streams. So for the low wage, if the person's paid less than the median for the province, the employer must know that they have to pay for the transportation of the employee to come to Canada, and they must pay for the transportation of the employee after they're done in Canada. If the employee has become a permanent resident, or the employee switching jobs or switching status, then they don't have to pay for their flight back, but they do have to commit to doing that. They also have to commit to paying for finding suitable accommodation, or that there's affordable accommodation for the temporary foreign worker. Now, if the pay is already sufficient to include this, so maybe the median might be $14 an hour or $16 an hour, and you're already paying them $21. Well, if this is sufficient for them to be able to pay for their own accommodation, then you can say this in the application. You can say that the wage takes into consideration living expenses in the city of XXX, and that's fine. If it's a city like Vancouver, a city like Toronto, and the wage is limited, then the employer should be able, sometimes the employers provide accommodation, or sometimes the employers say that there are certain regions in the city where there's affordable housing or affordable accommodation. Sometimes we provide ads of like rentals, so that the officer sees that with the wage that the employee is making, they're able to pay for their accommodations, and sometimes we even have the employer say that they're willing to serve as a guarantor, or provide with a first and last deposit, or anything to help the client be able to like execute a lease agreement. The employer is also responsible for healthcare until the employee is eligible under the provincial plan, so which I believe is normally 3 months. So they should provide some private healthcare before those until OHIP, or that's in Ontario, or the equivalent kicks in another province. And the application must include an employment contract. I mean, all applications should include an employment contract, quite frankly, even if it's for an unidentified employee. We normally include a sample contract. And then you can find one online for low wage applications. You can use that one. You're not obliged to do so, but you can use it. There's something important about the low wage application, since it is the cap. On June 20, 2014, the government introduced that a cap of maximum of 20% of temporary foreign workers in low wage positions at a particular location, or 10% if they hadn't hired people before June 20, 2014. So the way that this calculation works is that if your employer had not hired anyone before any low wage positions before June 20th, 2014, they're only allowed to have a maximum of 10% of low wage temporary foreign workers working at that work location. And we'll talk a little bit about the definitions of this and what that means. So of all the employees that they have, only 10% can be low wage under LMIAs. So we're not talking about LMIA exempts, we're talking about low wage temporary foreign worker programs. If before June 20, 2014, they had 13% who were foreign workers and in low wage positions, then they can have up to that, which is a 13%. They're kind of like providing an increase for people who already were using the program and they needed to rely on more foreign workers. If they had 17%, then it can have up to 17%. And if they had 20% or more, so if they had 30%, the maximum that they have is 20%. So it's going to depend on that. And like the calculation sometimes can be a little bit confusing, but you really have to go through the forms and make sure you're doing everything properly. There are some exemptions. I'll get to Alex's question in a second. Some exemptions are employee sites where there's less than 10 employees, highly mobile or truly temporary positions, so 120 calendar days or less. Low wage position in seasonal industries, and like this includes also the farming positions, because in those cases you could have up to, I don't know, like it could be 80% foreign workers or 60% foreign workers. So they provide exceptions to those industries because they know that they need a lot more than 20%. But if you don't fit any of these exemptions, then you can only have up to 10% if you didn't have any employees who were temporary foreign. Well, if you had less than 10% prior to June, whatever it is, 20th, 2014, and a maximum of 20% or whatever you had at the time of June 20th, 2014. So you'll have to kind of like work through the formula and take a look at that. In calculating that formula, and then I'll answer the question that we have here. So take into consideration that a low wage temporary foreign worker does not include LMIA exempt foreign workers. Temporary foreign workers in low wage positions who are exempt from the cap, so agricultural workers or provincial nominees. What does this mean? So basically, if I have an employer, let's say they have 20 employees, I'm trying to calculate how many of the current ones are temporary foreign workers in low wage positions. So I identify those who are in low wage positions, so less than the provincial median. So let's say the provincial median is $24. Who's making less than $24, and they are temporary foreign worker workers. So let's say not Canadian or not permanent residents. Okay, 5 of them. 5 out of 20, oof, that's already like a quarter there. So am I gonna be in trouble? Well, of those 5, 3 of them are on open work permits. So 2 of them are on spousal work permit and 1 of them on a post-graduation work permit. Those do not account because those are LMIA exempt foreign workers. So I don't have to, so I include those in the calculation of all the 20 that I have, but they don't count as low wage under the temporary foreign worker program. And 1 of them is a provincial nominee. Okay, that one doesn't count either. There's only 1 of them who is not a provincial nominee, who's on an LMIA work permit. That's the only one that I have, so 1 out of 20. Okay, so it's important that in that calculation you don't include LMI exempt foreign workers, even if they're low wage. You don't include provincial nominees and any that you might have who are exempt from the cap. Temporary foreign workers who have a work permit based on dual intent. So if you send an application in support of permanent residence, so you don't do the low wage stream, but you send an application in support of permanent residence, those you don't have to worry about the cap. You don't have to do the cap calculation. And those who have LMIAs that are low wage in support of permanent residence, then I would have to look at the instructions. I think in the calculation, no, I think they do count towards the cap. So I think it's only LMI exempt those who are LMI exempt, those who are exempt from the cap, and provincial nominees. I believe that those might be included in the cap. But the good thing is that, okay, if you're concerned about the cap, one thing that you can do, and I think this goes to your question, is you can send an application in support of PR, and then you don't have to be concerned about the cap there. And I think, and then as to Alex's question, what kind of healthcare options are available for employers for the 3 months? There's private healthcare, like find someone who provides healthcare to, so healthcare plans to there's like those travel agents who like provide healthcare plans for visitors and people like that with like short-term stay. They should have options. They should have options for like 4 months, 5 months, or per month or something like that. And then you'll be able to get something for, let's say, 3-4 months until they can apply for the provincial healthcare. And then Alex is asking, a small company with less than 10 employees, can they apply to hire 2 or more low-wage workers? Yep, that's correct. If you go to the, this I copied from the form, there are exemptions to the cap, and one of them is if the employer has fewer than 10 employees nationally. So it doesn't even matter if it is at the work location. Even if nationally they have less than 10 employees, then they can have more than 2 low-wage workers under the temporary foreign worker program. High wage. So if you've determined that if you're submitting a high wage application, so what the person is being paid is more than the provincial median, and you're not submitting a global talent stream application, or you're not submitting an application supporting PR, then you have to include a transition plan. So again, you can skip this. If you're doing the supporting PR, you can skip this if a different type of LMIA, but if it's a regular LMIA, high wage LMIA form, there's a mandatory requirement, which is that transition plan. And basically what the government wants to see is that the employer is committing to making efforts so that they're not gonna have to rely on foreign workers for this position in the future, or they're not gonna have to rely on so many foreign workers for this particular position in the future. So the transition plan is about describing activities agreed by the employer to recruit, retain, and train Canadian citizens and PRs to reduce reliance on the temporary foreign worker program. If you previously submitted a transition plan for the same work location and same position, the employer needs to provide results on the commitments made. And you need to remind employers that they're bound by the plan. So if they say here, oh, we're going to be doing co-op programs, we're going to have the foreign worker train people, we're going to be going to schools and participating in education fairs or education expos, they need to do this, because if they get a compliance review, they're going to check for this. Or if in the future, which hopefully won't happen, but they have to apply again for a employee in the same position, or even that same employee, they're going to have to show the efforts that they did and why do they still have to rely on someone else. So the activities, they need to be 3 distinct activities to recruit, retain, or train Canadians, and 1 distinct activity to engage an organization serving underrepresented groups to identify potential candidates. So it's quite involved. Activities could involve, as I said, having the foreign worker maybe do mentoring of Canadian employees so that they learn those skills, or have them do training of the Canadian employees, maybe lunch and learns, or on-the-job training. You could have co-op programs. You could have attending like education expos at different schools. And then you have to also identify one that has to deal with maybe going to specific places where you have underrepresented groups, or how you're going to be trying to recruit people in these groups for these 4 positions. Now there's a way to go around this, to basically, you actually either have to do those 3 distinct separate ones plus 1 that caters to underrepresented groups, or you can simply do an activity that facilitates the permanent residency of the temporary foreign worker. So if you basically say that you're committed to transitioning the temporary foreign worker to permanent residence, and you describe how this is going to happen, so be it by giving them a job offer that's going to make them eligible to apply under express entry, or navigating one of the provincial nominee programs, then that satisfies the transition plan, because at the end of the day, that person is going to become Canadian, so you're not going to have to rely on foreign workers for that position. So you can just skip the 3 plus 1, just do 1. But again, if you're committing, make sure you have there's a program in place in the province where you're going to be able to transition the person. And if and like make sure, like, I mean, that person has the right English or French level education, they're going to be competitive to do that transition, because you don't want to be in a situation where the employer is non-compliant with this. One thing to point out is that I prefer, so if I have a client who's willing to be transitioned to permanent resident, and by client there I mean the employee, and the employer is willing to transition that person to permanent resident, so I can do one of 2 things: fill out the high wage LMIA application, and in the transition plan include that section about facilitating the permanent residency, or I could send an LMIA application supporting PR. You probably would guess from what you've heard me say so far that my preference would be just sending the other one. It's processed faster. I don't have to fill out the transition plan, and that is a simpler way to go. Now, my only concern would be that if we have someone who, the employer is willing to transition to PR, but we're unsure whether they're going to be competitive because of their English level or their age or something like that, then maybe I prefer to send a high wage saying that the employer is committing to try to transition this person. The main reason being that if we send a high wage LMIA, it gets approved, and the employer does everything they committed to in the transition plan. So maybe providing language training, maybe providing the offer, registering them for the provincial program, doing everything they did, and even then the person wasn't able to transition. I feel more comfortable with showing that the efforts were made. If with the LMIA supporting PR, it's a little bit, vague as to, well, okay, what happens if the person doesn't transition? Like, is the employer non-compliant or not? So maybe when I'm concerned that the person might not be able to transition, that's when we maybe do the high wage LMIA and we explain all the efforts that are going to be tried to be made. And if at the end of the day the employer did made all those efforts and the employee was still able to not transition, then you can justify why you're not non-compliant. Alex has a question. Company has 100 employees, including 10 low-wage temporary foreign workers. How can they apply their LMIA for a work permit when the first year ends if the company wants to keep the 10 low-wage temporary foreign workers? So first of all, make sure that you are actually correct that they are all low-wage temporary foreign worker program workers. So do they have an LMIA? Would they be LMIA exempt? Because there are people, are some of them provincial nominees or PR applicants? Because maybe they don't enter there. And then, if it's those same 10, then they can still apply because it's 10%, 10 out of 100, it's 10%. But if they're still, in that case, it wouldn't necessarily be like new people. But if they obviously didn't apply for all of them at the same time. So let's say they have, I don't know, like if they're under 10%, it would be fine. So even if like 5 of them are applying to renew and there's 5 who are already there, then you should still be fine, because at the end of the day, when that LMI is approved, it's only going to be 10% of them. But if it's going to go above the 10% and they didn't hire any temporary foreign workers prior to June 20, 2014, you might have a problem there. My recommendation there might be to maybe doing supporting PR applications for them. PR, this is a good question. Can supporting PR applications be used for a Quebec employer? And the answer is no. The reason being the following. The supporting PR applications are in support of transitioning a foreign worker through the Federal Skilled Trades Program, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, or the Canadian Experience Class Program. And all of those 3 programs have a requirement that the employee, and I think we might discuss this when we get to that one, that the employee is not going to be working in Quebec, right? So if it's a Quebec employer, they're not going to be able to transition the person to PR under the federal program, so they will not be able to send an application to St. John's. They'll have to do the high wage or the low wage application. Now they'll be able to, for instance, in the high wage application, say that they're going to transition them through the Quebec Skilled Worker Program or the Quebec Experience Program. That's fine. But they will not, that's a good question, they'll not be able to use the PR supporting LMIA because they're not eligible to apply. That employee is not eligible to apply under a federal program for permanent residence. There's some exemptions to the high wage transition plan, caregivers, agricultural workers, Quebec's facilitated LMIA, limited duration position, and those who have unique skills or traits belonging to a specific individual. So sometimes NOC 00, so you have like a CEO or something like that, hiring by a foreign worker. Those are provided in the guidelines. Okay, now back to the LMIA supporting PR, which I know a lot of you have been asking questions about. It really is my preference. If I find that they have identified a candidate that has potential to be transitioned to PR, these applications are processed in St. John, New Brunswick at the Center of Specialization. Faster processing times. We even saw that in the posted processing times. No fee if simply supporting PR. So basically, if all you're going to do is use the LMIA to get this 50 or 200 points on express entry and apply for permanent residence, that is fine. But if you want to get a work permit as well while awaiting the PR, then you have to pay the 1,000 fee.